welcome back to another episode of the Ascending with Ashley podcast. I hope we're all doing amazing. I've got Dani in the house with me today. We know her, we love her. How are you, babe?
So good. So excited to be back and very excited for what we're talking about today.
I know we've got a juicy conversation. So, if you follow astrology at all, which you probably do if you're listening to this podcast, we have a lot of astro weather this week, the week that you're listening to this. So by the time this comes out, we would have gone through a full moon, the 7-7 portal, and Uranus entering Gemini, not to mention the smaller little intricacies that happen throughout each day in the week and all that good stuff. So, um, in talking with Dani when we started, I'm like, let's talk about Uranus and Gemini because as I said to you guys before, I really want this portion of Ascending with Ashley to be very beginner friendly for those of you who are learning astrology, wanting to learn astrology, wanting to understand how to put all this together and understand the language. So we got a deep dive for you on Uranus and Gemini. I think first off, though, I'd love to talk a little bit about this 7-7 portal.
Oh yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah, yeah. Um, some of you guys that are listening may know, may not know, obviously numerology is a big thing in spirituality, right? You've got the 11-11 portal, the 12-12 portal. Do you remember, oh God, the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction that happened a
Mhm.
couple years back? It also happened on a portal too. I can't remember the exact portal, but it was sometime in
I can't remember
December.
either. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
So
it happened on the solstice,
I think you're right. Yeah, it happened on the solstice.
which is a version
A
of a portal.
portal.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
So when we use the word portal, really what we're talking about, these are days that can be considered to be high vibe, high energy, a lot going on, a lot of people practicing their work, their craft, whatever that might mean. The veil is thin is another way to look at some of these portals, right? And so seven is traditionally associated with the number of God. It's a God number, if you will. Seven said to be a really highly spiritual number. So on this day that we're recording the 7-7 portal and the day that you're listening to it, you can still tap into these portals just because it's like 5 days later. Um, I would personally suggest to really work with your channel. And when I say
Ooh,
that,
yeah.
yeah, I mean like deep meditation, third eye work, doing crystal work, meditating and then journaling if you can. Salt bath, meditate, journal. Dare I say, get a good walk in beforehand. Like really focusing on the crown chakra and like cleansing and clearing these like higher spaces is a good practice to do.
I love that you said that because a lot of times when we start talking about numerology, I go tarot like very naturally. I instantly like in my mind start like bringing up the sevens, for example. And I
Yeah.
instantly thought of Seven of Cups. For anybody who's a tarot newbie, Seven of
Mhm.
Cups is this card in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck where we see this figure from behind. So they're kind of a silhouette and they're looking upon all these seven different cups that are filled with different items, different temptations or different luxuries, different choices, different options. And this card can be kind of like a, what do you call that? Like a hologram or the thing where it looks a little different one way or a little different if you shift your perspective. And the
Mhm.
Seven of Cups can be very like, look at all these opportunities presented to me in abundance. And it can also be being super overwhelmed by that. And I have always found that kind of the moral of the story of pulling in and simplifying Seven of Cups is streamlining like your conscious contact with God, like this channel between you and spirit, you and your guides,
Yeah.
because it's about eliminating the distractions. And I think this is so fitting, not just for the 7-7 portal, but any of these portals that we talk about, because I find that we get really wrapped up in what should I do? What should I do to make the portal special?
Yeah.
And I love your suggestions, Ash, because they're those simple and profound acts that bring us closer to our spirituality,
Yeah.
that build trust in
Yeah.
ourselves and our intuition. And what a perfect time to do that, but in the middle of Cancer season. I know, exactly. It's like just such a perfect time to pull in, get simple with it, And
Yeah.
yes, you are like, there are so many options of like magic around you. And often this is going to be perfect when we talk about Uranus and Gemini. It's so easy to get stuck in the overthinking part and not
Yeah.
actually being present in the energy. I find that on the portal days, what is meant to happen, I look at them as like gateways of change sometimes. And you
Mm,
step through that gateway, whether you're doing a witchcraft ritual that day or not. So,
mm-hmm.
honestly, one of the best things you can do is use portal days to be present. What are the things that really bring you presence in your experience and like ground you in this life, this thing that you're doing? Yeah.
Mm. Mm. I love that. We're tangenting a little bit, but we're gonna go with it. I feel like that, that makes me think about the conversation that we just had before we hopped on being present, you guys know Dani is on her sobriety journey. Some of you may
Mhm.
know that I'm also on mine. And we were just talking about it before you came on. And Dani actually made me like take a moment to be present in the fact that I've been sober more than half a year and I hadn't really been present in it. So I really love that you said that because it
Yeah.
gave me a moment to pause and sit in the gratitude to myself for that,
Oh,
and
I
I
like
think that's
goosebumps.
I know it's like it's super juicy and like powerful, right? To sit in that gratitude for just a moment,
Yeah.
the busyness of the day and just whew, like what are we doing? Why are we here? We good? We feeling good? All of
This
that. So,
is perfect lead
hmm.
up and mindset for Uranus and Gemini.
Uranus and
Honestly, this
Gemini, yeah,
isn't
it's your
even that much
yes.
of a tangent. This is good
Yeah, it is.
context, I think, for us to take into the Uranus and Gemini because presence and grounding in your gratitude, wow, how powerful is that probably going to be to
Presence
us
and
as a
grounding
tool?
in your gratitude. It's so true. Um, yeah, so okay, let's talk Uranus and Gemini.
Yeah.
Okay. Bleh! I'm excited, guys. So this is why I'm so excited. It's like, where do we begin? First off, when a major planet, they're all important, but when we have these outer planets, as what they're called, friends, move into different zodiac signs, the reason why astrologers kind of lose their shit is because it takes forever to happen. So the farther away a planet is from the Earth or from the sun, whatever, it doesn't really matter. The farther away a planet is from our POV, the longer it takes to move. And so that's why if you guys notice, you hear a lot about Mercury going retrograde, but you never hear anything about Uranus going retrograde. Uranus goes retrograde too, friends.
Hmm.
Mercury just does it quicker. It's that instant
Hmm.
gratification thing that we just need as, first world countries. That's a whole nother conversation. But
Oh,
we
yeah.
just, yeah, I know. But we see a lot of that instant gratification sort of idea in astrology and the pop culture of it all. Um, and so I, real astrologers will understand that it's just as important to talk about Uranus retrograde or Uranus entering a different sign as it is Mercury. So,
Yes.
hot take,
Yes.
fam.
So, so true. The way that I talk about the planets in this quick grouping, especially to help kind of build that context of the outer planet, you have your inner planets, which is going to be the sun and the moon are included. We know that
Hmm.
astronomically, these are not literally planets, they're celestial, yes. But,
We know.
for short-term reference, you'll hear
Hmm.
astrologers call them planets, but they are part of the inner planets. And then Mercury, Venus, and Mars. Now, Jupiter and Saturn sometimes get grouped into the inner planets, and sometimes they kind of have their own group. I personally have this little label I give them called the peer planets, and that's because we share those placements with our peers often because
Ah,
yeah,
that is so
is
cute.
that yeah, because like
Ah!
most of the people you went to school with in your same grade or one grade above, yes, exactly. We're gonna
Oh
have
my
like
God, I'm
the
dead.
same Jupiter, we're gonna have the same Saturn, we're all gonna go through our
Yeah.
Saturn return together. So I call
Oh
them
my
our
God,
peer
I'm
planets.
dead. That's
And then your
fantastic.
outer planets, these are also called generational planets because
Yes.
they stay in a sign for so long.
Right.
Think of how many people get born under Uranus in a certain sign because it
Right.
stays in a sign for about 7 years. And I believe it is about 84 years to make a full orbit through the entire zodiac.
Zodiac.
That is significantly longer than the planet that's a little bit closer right before, which is Saturn. Saturn takes about 29 years to get through the whole zodiac, to do one full
Hmm.
orbit. We get to Uranus and we jump up to 84 years to transit through the whole entire zodiac. So it spends 7 years, again, about in each sign. So a lot takes place. There are these shared events among generations and these common
Right.
traits that we share as yeah. So that's like how I categorize them a little bit. Your inner planets are like very
Hmm.
distinctive of you and your personality, and you might have them in common with certain people. But I like my best friend was born 2 weeks after me, same year, and we have a few of the same planets, definitely the outer planets, but most of our inner planets are completely different. And we're only 2 weeks apart. This is how,
Yeah.
it shows how different our personality is as reflected in our chart. But the generational planets bind us and bond us in like in a really unique way because of
They
how
really
long they stay
do.
in the sign.
They really, really do. Not to nerd out, but to kind of nerd out. So one thing that you mentioned, Danny, the big jump from Saturn to Uranus. Fun fact, friends, it's because Uranus and Saturn have an eerily longer distance apart from one another than the other planets do. And if you
Oh,
really go into it, there's a huge like meteor belt in between Saturn and Uranus, and astronomers believe that there was another planet there, and there was a huge like asteroid that hit this planet, and this is why Uranus rotates on a wobble, because meteorite dust hit this planet and fucked up its orbit, or the gravitational pull of this planet and fucked up its orbit. And to bring the astrology into it, one of the reasons why Uranus is the do things different planet is because it rotates on a wobble. So
huh.
I just kind of want you guys to kind of
Oh, I
understand
love
how
that.
much all of this is so intertwined with one another.
Yes.
Uranus is the only planet to rotate on a wobble, and it's one of its major meanings in astrology is I'm going to do this differently just because I can.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just got really excited. I had to share
Oh
that.
my God, I love that. That's so cool.
Um,
I love connections
it's
like that.
super cool, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I guess, babes, to start from the beginning with you guys, the way that I love to teach astrology, and I think Danny can relate, is we start with the basics. What does Gemini even mean? What is the astrological significance of Uranus? And why should we care about this transit? And I think when we get to the why we should care is probably when we'll go into what Uranus and Taurus meant, which Uranus is leaving Taurus and going into Gemini. So remember, friends, if you look at your zodiac chart, your birth chart, and if you find any of this interesting, I urge you to binge Astrology After Dark. Where those
Oh
episodes
yeah.
are going to stay up. If you are like, I love this, but I don't get it, binge that. So on the wheel, the zodiac signs go in order, a specific order, starting with Aries, number one, right? The baby of the zodiac. And it goes all the way around. So when you get to Taurus, the next one in line is Gemini. And so that's where Uranus is entering into officially today, which I'm very excited for. So I guess let's start with Gemini. Let's start
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Um, when I think of Gemini, I immediately think the curious kid of the zodiac.
Mhm.
Curiosity, childlike mentality, air energy, playfulness, and intellectualness and intellectuality, a level of
Intellectuality.
intellectualness.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that a word?
Yeah.
Let's make it
Intellectuality
a
is.
word.
Yeah.
Intellectuality. Yeah. There's an intellectuality about Gemini.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Air
very
sign.
much so. Air sign,
Hmm.
exactly. So, when you think of the sign of Gemini or Gemini energy, what comes to mind, Danny?
Okay. First is the mind. So
Yeah.
communication, thinking, nervous
Mm-hmm.
system, mental health, neurotypical, neurodivergent,
Mm-hmm.
because all of these things also encompass our learning styles,
They
and learning
do.
styles are so Gemini. How our
Mm-hmm.
brain, because really this is Gemini's role in the zodiac. We start at baby Aries, like you said, which is all about just like straight up exploring, just
Yeah.
trying everything, exploring. In Taurus, it's all about building security for the sake of long-term safety and survival. In Gemini, start our earliest times of playing. This is some of our first times of things being fun and interesting, and it's because Gemini's purpose is to get us interested in the world around us and how we interact
Oh,
with
say it
it.
louder for the people in the
Yeah,
back. Gemini's
exactly.
purpose is to get us interested in the world around us. I couldn't have said that
Yes.
better myself.
It's so,
Yeah.
so true. And I think one of my favorite things about Gemini is you'll notice its symbol is like, looks like a Roman numeral two.
Hmm.
Gemini is symbolized by the twins. Um, this is a very watered down version. You can look into it after the show if this is interesting to you. But those twins, mythologically, one twin is responsible for speaking and the other
Mm,
twin is silent and is responsible for the listening. Together, they
mm,
represent communication, and that
mm.
both are equal. What we export or we put out in our word, and whether that's written word, spoken word, right? However, we export what's going on in our brain and putting it out into the world, but also the information that we import as well, and how we listen, how we learn. Look at the Gemini area of your chart to learn more about your curiosity tendencies and
Yeah.
your learning styles, your unique learning styles. And this is often one of the major sources in our charts of our unique sense of humor. And it's a little bit different for everybody, but Gemini, when you were talking about the curious kid, as soon as you said that, I thought the curious kid and the class clown.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because
Yeah.
Gemini is definitely not about taking life too seriously. It's very curious and
Hmm.
learning, but Gemini is matter of fact and does not
Very
like
much
take
so.
itself too seriously or take anybody else too seriously. And that's
Yeah.
kind of one of the reasons I think Gemini has the reputation it does, is because sometimes it doesn't really give a fuck because it doesn't take you too seriously and it doesn't
Let's
take
talk
itself too
about that
seriously.
because
Yeah.
I love talking about the pop culture. Just to, this is such an age of Aquarius topic I'm getting into, but Aquarius rules technology. Technology is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and everybody's getting super curious about astrology, which, amazing, fantastic. But there is a lot of pseudo stuff out there when it
Yeah.
comes to it. And the one thing I can't stand is when baby astrologers, amateur astrologers, or pretend astrologers love to placate to the pop culture of it all. So essentially, what I'm getting at, friends, is when Danny was talking about Gemini having the reputation that it does, I'm assuming you're talking about Gemini being two-faced.
Gemini being two-faced, Gemini honestly in general being hated on a lot. It's like one of the
Yeah,
most hated next to Scorpio, it's like
next to
one of the
Scorpio,
most hated on signs. I would say Gemini, Scorpio, and then specifically Pisces men. When you
Pisces
listen,
men.
yes, when you like listen in pop culture and like
Hmm.
mainstream, those are memes that you come across.
Virgos aren't
Um,
like too much either.
yeah, yeah. Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's like the hater zodiac club that a lot of people love, love, love to hate on.
Right, and they do
Um,
that to get clicks, friends. So I want you all to
yeah,
understand, like, if you're
exactly.
looking to take your astrology seriously, really study it because a lot of those folks are just trying to get clicks and they're not really trying to teach you anything. That's really what we're getting at here.
The zodiac, the reason I even explained that little mini progression from Aries to Gemini is you need to understand that I don't care if you don't have a single Gemini placement in your chart, you have Gemini in your
Yes, I was just
chart.
telling my clients this the
Gemini is
other
a
day. Yeah,
part of astrology. It's a part of the zodiac wheel. And in your chart, you have the whole zodiac wheel. It gets
right.
even if you don't have placements, it gets activated when Gemini
Mm-hmm.
transits happen, which you bet you ass that it's about to happen with Uranus and Gemini
Exactly.
activation. And
Yeah.
instead of looking at, you know, I love a hilarious astrology meme. I am not hating on that by any means. And that's very Gemini to laugh at ourselves. And at the same time, I think what Ashley and I get upset about or frustrated with is the people that literally will write a person off because they have like a Gemini placement. And I'm like, do you not
Or like just
understand
their
that?
sun is in Gemini.
Yes. And I'm like, do you not understand that every single pie piece in that zodiacal wheel has a divine purpose?
Exactly.
And that's what we were talking about today. That's exactly what we were just
Yeah.
describing. It's the role Gemini has. So,
Hmm.
especially, I would advise you if you're a person who kind of wrinkles your nose at Gemini energy, and we all have that with certain signs.
We
I
do.
was that way with Leo before I found out I was a Leo rising, and that's what happens.
And I
You
was
get
with Capricorn before I found out I've got like
a
6 planets in
stellium.
there. Like a big ass stellium in Capricorn. I
Usually
need
you're
Capricorn
projecting. Yes.
energy.
Oh yeah,
Usually you're
yeah.
projecting.
You
Yeah.
usually are.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you're a person has a bad taste in your mouth about Gemini because of someone you know or something that's happened, I encourage you to try and look at what is the role and purpose of Gemini. That
In
is such
my
a more
life.
Gemini way to
Yeah.
approach it, anyways, because
Hmm.
it's more neutral and it's being curious. It's approaching things with curiosity.
Exactly. And I love Geminis. And again, I'm biased because I'm Sagittarius. So we're opposite on the zodiac wheel. And opposites attract in the
Mhm.
world of
They have a
astrology.
connection. Yes,
They have a
exactly.
connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've always liked Gemini. But so hopefully you guys have a better, deeper understanding of Gemini energy. And if you're one of those people that scroll like astrology TikTok, just take everything with a grain of salt. Just remember
Mhm.
that. And these longer forms of content like Danny and I are creating and other astrologers on like, YouTube, Bahati Life is a great one on YouTube and on podcasting platforms. I just think if you are looking to really gain something, I would stick with longer form content because the folks that are putting the energy into these longer pieces of content tend to know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stay away, especially during Gemini or Uranus and Gemini, because it is related to our nervous system and our mental health.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it is.
Pay attention to what is clearly rage bait and what's
Hmm.
clearly just fear mongering. When I think my biggest pet peeve is finding a reel. It's a little more common on TikTok, but it happens on like short form on YouTube and Instagram, like you said. But you're exactly right. It happens more
Hmm.
frequently in short form where it's this 10 to 30-second video of literally all these horrible things that are going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, first of
That's
all, how the
right.
fuck is this supposed to help? This doesn't actually help anybody.
Exactly. It's so true. It doesn't help anybody. And that's why I just feel like as a content creator in the space, and you and I have been doing this for a while now. I was thinking
Mhm.
about this the other day. I'm like, I've been a content creator for like 7 years or so. Hi. For like 7 years. I just feel like there is kind of an obligation just to let people know who are just coming into the space, hey, that might be cool, but there are certain platforms that are designed to keep you on the platform. And there are certain creators that are out there just to get a buck. And, there's no shade. Get your bag, boo. But if you are really, truly looking to understand how this world works, I would suggest putting your energy into longer pieces of content.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
So with that, make sure you subscribe. Okay, so let's talk about Uranus. I
Yeah.
think, the average person tends to have a general understanding of the zodiac chart, but then when you get
Hmm.
to the planets, it starts to get a bit
Then we get
fuzzy.
fuzzy. Yes.
Yeah. Uranus is one of my favorite planets just because, he likes to do things differently.
Because you're an Aquarius moon.
And I'm an Aquarius moon. That part. Yeah. Yeah. That part. So
You said
Uranus
that. I was like,
rules
of
the
course you
sign of
do.
Aquarius. Yeah. I'm fascinated with Uranus, to be honest with you. It's weird. It's a weird ass planet.
It's a planet that kind of begs fascination, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's the
So
higher octave of Mercury, right?
right,
Well,
right.
let me explain that a tiny
I
bit.
was just
So,
gonna say, break
yeah.
that down. Break that
So
down.
this connects perfectly. If that sounded confusing, think right back
Wait.
to how I categorized those
Hmm.
planets at the beginning from the inner, the peer, and the outer planets.
Hmm.
Those inner planets, the fast movers, have an outer planet parallel.
Hmm.
And the inner planet represents like the small scale or the micro examples of
Hmm.
this overarching energy or theme it represents. And then the outer planet represents these bigger, longer term, much more zoomed out, bigger scale, macro examples of those experiences and themes. So Mercury would be the lower and higher, we don't mean in some kind of like hierarchy. Think of
Right.
them as literal parallels. And Mercury is like one level of the video game in that
Hmm.
theme. and then you graduate to the Uranian level. They're both air planets. They both represent they both represent there's
Communication.
yes, exactly. There's communications and they both have airs of disruption about them.
Disruption. Yes. Yes. Very great way to put it. Uranus is the revolutionary. They do things differently. They decide to beat to the tune of their own drum, I think is a great way to put it. Uranus is also associated with government, and it's a disruptor of things. It disrupts how things are done. Going back to the wobble that I mentioned, right?
Mhm.
Everybody's spinning in accordance the way it's supposed to, and Uranus like, no, no, no. I'm going to go this way. You'll find astrologers referring to Uranus as the mad scientist of the zodiac.
Mhm.
That analogy like always stuck with me because it made me think of this like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde scenario, and how the mad scientist is like, I want to try this and see if this works, and I want to try that and see if that works. And it kind of brings in this imagery, this level of imagery to Uranus and Uranian traits that
Mhm.
you know, make it come together, if that makes sense. Um, what else? Innovation is another word that comes through when I think of
Innovation.
Uranus.
Uranus is this rebel and revolutionary,
Hmm.
and it brings a lot of awareness to power dynamics.
Yes.
There
Yes.
is tower energy in Uranus. This,
Yes,
my
there
friends,
is.
is Ashley's, in my opinion, you're a little unique because
Mm-hmm.
there are those fascinated by Uranus. I would say you're a little outnumbered by the people who are very intimidated and downright
Mm-hmm.
scared of Uranus
Mm-hmm.
energy
Mm-hmm.
because of its unpredictable nature. When
Mm-hmm.
people try, this is why, especially with Uranus transit specifically, when people are like, this, all these bad things are going to happen in Uranus, because this is what happened back in the day with
Yeah.
when Uranus was in Gemini or Taurus or whatever. Zoom out even farther. And instead of saying this happened then, so it's going to happen now, Uranus is going to come in and go, I'm going to fuck all that shit up. You're not going to be able to
Yeah.
predict at all what comes. And this
Yeah.
is because Uranus is has this air of what must come down. And so
Very
these
tower.
these exactly huge regimes that go down, huge revolutions that take place. Um, we pay attention during those times in history to what Uranus was doing at that time.
World War
And I think,
II.
yes,
World War II
yes,
happened when Uranus was in Gemini.
mhm,
Again, going back to what Danny just said, we are not claiming there's going to be another world war. Could there? That's again a whole nother podcast, friends. If you guys want to know my
yeah,
political views, that's paid content. I'm not putting my political views out there for you guys to pick apart. But I'm just stating the facts. World
yeah,
War II happened when Uranus was in Gemini.
yeah. And one thing I love to do with the planets in general is look to their mythology and look at their stories. It's
Mm-hmm.
very fascinating, the symbolism you can pull out of it. Uranus, we're going to go Greek real quick. Uranus is Uranos, which is god of the sky and father to Saturn or Kronos. Saturn or Kronos is father to Jupiter slash Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
There is this theme of, so in mythology, each of those sons took over their father and took over
Mm-hmm.
as king. First, Kronos did it to Uranus, then Zeus did it to Titan Kronos. Um, to me, this is symbolized by when it is time for the next generation to step up, to
Yeah.
take the torch. Sometimes the torch is being passed, sometimes it's not being passed,
Yeah.
but it's very representative of being the next, right?
Yeah.
Stepping into the next. And right
Yeah.
now, millennials and
I was
Gen
just gonna
Z,
say
I'm
that's
talking to
us.
you. That's us,
That's
guys. We're
us.
real grown-ups now.
Yeah, we're real fucking
We're real
grown-ups
grown-ups
now.
and
When
we
did
are
that
about to
happen?
be all this shit. We talk about the boomers or the greatest generation. While plenty of things are valid and plenty of things are invalid that we complain about those generations, the bottom line is we're about to be in their position before we
Yeah.
realize it. And we're going to be responsible for being the adults and then eventually the elders of the
Yeah.
world. And so I think Uranus is also a good planet for reflecting on generational patterns, generational traditions, that passing the torch energy for sure. And if you are a person who maybe has a bad taste in your mouth toward boomers, for example, what can you do in your generation to pass that baton on in a more enlightened way? Because Uranus is an air planet. It is the higher octave to Mercury. We
Yeah.
just spent a lot of time talking about this air planet. What are you learning from the generations that came before you with what you also now know? And what wisdom can you carry forward? And what good can you do in the world with that? We're going to see our tower moments. We're going to see them. No, my friends, I don't care what fucking sign Uranus is in. We're gonna have tower
Right.
moments. We're gonna have
Yeah.
tower moments. So there's no avoiding
Yeah.
them. Um, lean in. Where can you lean in to that?
Yeah.
And recognize that what's coming down needs to come down. You know what I mean?
I love all of that. And, when I think of Uranus and Gemini, I think of mental stimulation on how to do things differently. That's mainly what I think about, right? Like how are we doing things differently? And, you know, I guess in the space that I'm in right now, being in my mid 30s and just having this complete transformation in so many ways. I feel like I've become this like glutton for self-improvement. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing at all. But I do want to be clear in saying I'm not telling any of you guys, your life sucks, do better. But what I am saying is, in my 30s and being a practitioner of magic and astrology and tarot and being in the fitness space and being in the online space and the TV space, what is it all for if not for
Mhm.
self-improvement? You
Yes.
know what I mean? Like, what is it
Yes.
all for then? And so I think with this Uranus and Gemini energy, we have this beautiful, long, steady invitation to get really deep and methodical and strategical about how we are doing things differently. Said thing can be fill in the blank friend. We all have that area or areas of life that need improvement. Every single one of us do,
Hmm.
myself included, right? So it's like, what can I do? What are the micro things I can do to kind of make this a little better and maybe alleviate some pressure and or stress around a conversation, a situation, a bank account, getting up out of bed, pressing snooze, whatever it is for you, right?
Hmm.
Uranus is unpredictable, but Uranus is also steady in the fact that he does move so slow.
Yep.
So we know Uranus is going to be there, I think, till what, 2033, I think. Let me see.
We see the
2033.
we see the lightning strikes
Hmm.
of Uranus. We see these big scale
The
events.
lightning
Don't get
strikes.
me
I'm glad you
wrong.
mentioned
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
exactly. Because that's what they're like. They are these big scale events that like come on all of a sudden and take place.
Yeah, yeah.
And do not forget that you just mentioned something so important about it being an outer planet. A lot of it is a much more subtle than you realize. A lot of
Yes.
it is much more subtle than you realize. One thing that I
Hmm.
think we're going to see turned on its head in the next 8 years is how we learn and schooling and education in general.
Which is about
Um,
time. Our
that's what
education
I was
systems
about
need
to say.
help.
That's what I was about to say. Our
Yeah.
education systems need help. There's so much crookedness and corruption and the way that it's structured and systemized. Let's be honest. isn't really truly set up for the student and the teacher. You
No,
know what
not
I
even
mean?
a
It's
little bit.
really, really not.
Not even a little bit.
We
You guys
are,
heard it here first, by the way, because I fully agree with
I
Danny. You
absolutely think
you
we're going to
heard it
see it
here first. Within the next
turned
eight
on its
years.
head. Yeah, somehow.
Yeah.
Again, this is the beauty of Gemini. I mean, actually, Gemini and Uranus. This kind of works for both. There is power, my friend, in saying the words, I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
exactly what it's going to look like. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. Surrendering to that unknown aspect
Mhm.
is a way to kind of align with that unpredictability aspect of
Mhm.
Uranus so that it doesn't
Mhm.
feel scary, so it doesn't feel
Yeah.
ominous.
Yeah.
But there is, yeah, mark my words, there will be some massive changes to how we learn, both in our actual educational system and just in general. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a big kind of leveling up for our brains in a lot of ways that's setting us
Mhm.
up in Pluto and Aquarius, Age of Aquarius,
Mhm.
evolutionary type stuff. Yeah,
I fully agree. Because
totally.
guys, you guys have heard us mention Age of Aquarius stuff here and there. And if you want a full episode on that, let us know. But
Oh, yeah.
like overall, we are in the Age of Aquarius. And that there's a lot of math in there. We're talking hundreds of years. Long story short, what you guys need to know is it's not by accident that our tech has advanced as quickly as it has, and it's still advancing. It's it's going to be a fucking world in like 15 years. And I'm so
No.
honored, knock on wood, that we will both still be alive to see it because
Mhm.
even like 10 years from now, it's going to be interesting. Um, Let's talk a little bit about Uranus and Taurus and kind of how that played out
Mhm.
for both of us and maybe some of the things that we saw in the world overall to kind of notate the difference between the feeling of Uranus and
Mhm.
Taurus energy and the feeling of Uranus and Gemini energy.
One of the biggest things I noticed both within myself and the world around me, especially like paying attention to trends and themes on social media. It's
Yeah.
a really good way of getting vibes of the collectives are these
Mm-hmm.
huge trends that we see through content.
Mm-hmm.
I love looking at that just as much as I
It's
love looking at
fascinating.
like pop culture with astrology. Exactly.
Yeah.
Social media trends and how that connects to astrology is fascinating. So for me, how strong has the view and focus and importance on our consumerism been these last 7 years?
Girl.
How we consume our resources, the way we cultivate our resources, how
Mm-hmm.
we spend them, how we save them. This conversation got massive, and we also saw lots of examples of why overconsumerism has reached breaking points. Let's be honest. It's reached breaking
Right.
points. And that is Uranian in its nature. That is Tower card in its nature. When something reaches a breaking point or a boiling over point, that's a
Mm-hmm.
Tower moment. That's a Uranus. I haven't said it Uranus in so long. That's a Uranus.
Uranus. You guys remember that joke in middle school, high school? What was that joke? I just know it
Oh my
ended with
God.
Uranus.
We were watching Spaceballs. If anyone doesn't know, it's like an old, it makes fun of Star Wars movie. But they have this like bumper sticker on one of the spaceships that says "I heart," and I read it because I'm an astrologer. I was sitting there and I was like, "Oh, I heart Uranus," and I was like, "Oh yeah, duh. It's supposed to say it's a joke. It's supposed to
Uranus.
say I heart
Yeah.
Uranus." Yes,
That's
but I was
funny.
dying at myself because I was like, "You're such an astrologer. You read that as an
Yeah.
astrologer."
Such an
Anyways,
astrologer.
yes, the Taurus being this earth sign, very, very, very concerned with, again, our security in the day to day and what that means for long term
And natural
sustainability.
resources, which you were talking about
Exactly.
before. Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
This brought a lot of focus and attention on the things that have been going a certain way for a long, long time, potentially
Hmm.
maybe since the last time Uranus was in Taurus, for
Right.
example.
Right.
And things coming to a head. And I think that we're
Which,
seeing.
correct me if I'm wrong, sorry to
Mhm.
interrupt, but
No, you're
was
good.
that around the Industrial Revolution? If Uranus was in Gemini and during World War II in 1941, then that means that it wasn't in Gemini during World War One. Let me see when the Industrial Revolution was.
That's what I was about to do.
Oh, were you? Are you doing it
I'm
now?
gonna look at
Okay.
the last. You do that. I'm gonna look at the last time Uranus was in
Taurus.
Gemini. Yep. Whoops.
Oh,
Um. Yes.
Oh, the Industrial Revolution was way earlier than that. It was in 1760. So let me see here. Where was Uranus in 1760? Now I'm just curious. What sign?
I know. I'm gonna look at Taurus from year, let's put in like 1600.
Uranus was in the sign of Taurus.
Oh my God.
I knew
Thank
it.
you.
Listen, friends,
Yep,
if people
yep,
want to talk
yep.
shit about astrology, bro.
Hmm.
Uranus was in the sign of Taurus during the Industrial Revolution. And
And guess when else it was?
when?
In the middle of the Great Depression.
Whew, and we
Just
just got out
saying.
of it again. So, and then notice how like we've been teetering on this recession type vibe.
Hmm.
Like in these last 10 years, there has been talk about a second Great Depression multiple
Oh,
times.
yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
this
Our
was when
economy is
Uranus was
due,
in
quite
Taurus.
frankly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our
So,
economy, and not to get like too dorky about it, but like our
mhm.
economy has been being manipulated with for
Yeah,
way too long.
way too long.
It's supposed to go through those ebbs and flows, and it keeps being manipulated with so that that doesn't happen. And
Hmm.
eventually, what that does is it only kicks the can down the road.
Hmm.
So we'll see something happen. I don't know that it will look like the Great Depression, but I think it will be we'll see parallels.
Version of it. Yeah, the
Exactly.
futuristic version of it. No, I agree. So, I mean, I hope you guys kind of picked up in all of that what we were talking about when it comes to like cycles and things like that. We just named some crazy events that we all learned in history that all happened while Uranus was in Taurus. And now you guys can take a moment and think about what these last 10 years looked like while Uranus was in
Mhm.
Taurus from the top down, from how we do government to how we do life on a regular basis, right? So, what does that even mean? So now we've talked about this idea of Uranus and Taurus. So I guess, Danny, to kind of bring it back home, what are your thoughts besides educational systems on the Uranus and Gemini energy? And I guess more so, we will see how things play out collectively, but for the individual that kind of wants to
Mhm.
work with this energy, what do you suggest?
So give a shit about how your brain works, how the
Yeah,
nervous system works, how we learn. The more you care about mental health for yourself and the more you invest in mental health tools for yourself and your community, um, the better, quite honestly, during this.
yeah,
Because I think that Uranus and Gemini is indicative of some potentially big burdens to our nervous system. I
yeah.
think it's going to have the purpose of expanding our capacities, but it's going to feel big. It's going to feel overwhelming. If you are a person with a lot of Gemini placements, I would say, my friend, if as a person with Mars and Gemini, who it was so funny because we got on here to record today, and I told Ashley I was having horrible. Probably some of the worst anxiety I've had in several years, quite honestly,
Hmm.
last night to the point where it kept me up. And usually it doesn't keep me up as much as it did. And I got less than 3 hours of sleep. So this to me, and then I came on here and you were like 7-7 portal, Uranus and Gemini. And I was like, oh my God, of
Oh,
course. This
yeah,
is
yeah.
such a mass for I'm going to advise you by telling you exactly how I'm taking my own advice. As soon as you said that, Ash, I was like, oh my God, this is such a learning moment for me. This is
Hmm.
such a learning moment for me
Hmm.
to not sweep my anxiety under the rug, to
Hmm.
not ignore it, to not burden my nervous system in unnecessary ways, and to care about it. Remember that I love this because of what you do in Ascending with Ashley, Ash, because when we bring fitness and spirituality together, we remember that there is a purpose to exercise. And exercise is stress on the body, it's stress on the
Hmm.
nervous system, it's intentional stress because the right dosages of stress expand us. They strengthen our muscles, they strengthen our
Hmm.
resiliency. All of these beautiful things are very good for our nervous systems. And how easy is it to overdo that? How
Right.
easy is it to do a lot of damage to it? This might be a time
Hmm.
you might find that there's this big awareness for yourself all of a sudden. This is what happened. This
Hmm.
is exactly what Ashley and I were talking about when we got on the phone. I had this huge moment of clarity where I was like, to go back to the sobriety thing where I was like, oh my God, is my anxiety horrible right now? Or am I open to it and paying attention to it and not numbing it out for the first time?
Yeah.
Am I being
Yeah.
present with it and learning it and understanding it,
Hmm.
implementing these tools and doing those things take patience and take
They
capacity.
do. They
That's my
do.
biggest advice for you that I'm literally in the
Mm.
process of taking myself. I'm calling my sponsor this week and I have a therapy session this week. So,
Yes. I mean,
like,
also too, I
take
I
care of
feel like
yourself.
just, yeah, and those are all very grounding practices. And,
Mhm.
you know, we're dealing with a lot of air energy. And also too, we didn't even get a chance to touch on the full moon in Capricorn. We're working with Earth directly. Guys, we have a lot going on this week astrologically. So,
Yeah.
if you're feeling out of whack, don't be surprised. Take a lot of what Danny's advice was and just remember who you are. Take a minute to sit into the gratitude that you're here, you're breathing, you're walking. You
Yeah.
get to do this.
Yes.
We get to do life
Hydrate,
on this rock.
eat, take
Hmm.
breaks, go to your basics. Go back. Sometimes right back to your basics are the most profound
Always.
things that you can do. Did you eat today? Have you drank some water? Did you take a
Yeah.
break? How was your sleep last night? Those types of things. Did you open up your phone and immediately, that's been a big thing I've done lately, is I turned my phone to having this morning mode where every morning at it's sometime while I'm asleep, it's like 4:30 a.m. or something. It turns on to morning mode and it turns to grayscale and I customize the whole thing and I only let it allow me to open certain apps that I need
Mm.
first thing in the morning. But you know what I don't need first thing in the morning? Spikes to my nervous system and spikes to my
Yeah.
cortisol and spikes of dopamine that set me up for crashes later in the day. That's a
Hmm.
really tiny, simple thing I've done. It was a challenge at first to break the habit of opening up my Instagram first thing in the
Right.
morning.
Right.
I cannot tell you how much of a I'm not kidding you, how much of a difference this has made in just my ability to be more patient throughout my day. I'm serious because I haven't
Yeah.
been
I'm gonna look into doing
overloading
that.
my nervous system in the morning. I think these
Hmm.
types of simple things gonna be really, really big game changers right now. They're
It's
gonna look
subtle
small,
changes.
but yes, exactly. It still
Subtle
is.
changes. So, thank you so much, Danny, as per usual. I
Oh,
appreciate
this is
having
fun.
you. It's
Yes, I loved
always so
this.
fun to
Hmm.
kiki astrology with you,
Oh
always.
yes,
So,
I loved it.
yeah, you guys already know if you have any suggestions for what you want to hear us talk about, you know where to find us both. All of Danny's information is down below in the show notes. All of mine is there too. Make sure you like and share the episode. Because this is a new podcast, I am starting from scratch. My hundreds of thousands of downloads are now back to zero, and I'm okay with that. So please share the episode. Let's let people know. And we'll see you in the next one. Ciao,
Yep.
ciao for now.